Merci d'être venu cet après-midi. Thank you for coming tonight to see Side by Side. My thanks to Sophie and the Elysees Film Festival for the opportunity to show this film, documentary. And thank you, Vanessa. Thank you. And Jean-Michel, Lorenzi, thank you very much for the introduction and the possibility to be here. I hope you enjoy it, and thank you again. Bon film.
Merci d'être venu pour voir le documentaire Side by Side. Merci à Sophie. Merci au showbiz du festival de m'avoir accueilli. Merci Vanessa. Merci Jean-Michel Lorenzi qui m'a permis d'être ici aujourd'hui.
Definitely having the experience of participating in Side by Side. Definitely informed. I ended up shooting Manitai Cheetah film I directed and acted in digitally on the Elysees studio camera. So having gone through the experience of the documentary, I was certainly much more familiar with digital cameras and digital workflow.
By the way, I mean, was it a choice digital or did you have no choice? The truth.
The truth was the first originally I was going to do the film photochemically, but the producer said, no, you're not. And the cinematographer that I worked with, Elliot Davis, was fine with either format, so we tested cameras and we came to the camera that we ultimately used. And I was really happy with the look and everything involved with that decision.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, why the producer said, no, you're not, it came from a financial perspective. Yeah, the producer was feeling that with the digital camera that it wouldn't be as expensive and we could put more on the screen, as they say.
In fact, we're surprised because we obviously know you as an actor, and we're surprised to suddenly find out that you are interested as a producer, as a journalist. I mean, basically in not only the behind the scene and the camera, but the inside the camera. Were you always fascinated by that aspect? I mean,
since I was a child, I was always asking why. It used to drive everyone around me crazy because it was like, why and how come? Once I started working in making movies and acting in that format, I was always really curious about where the camera was going, what was the lens doing, and also in terms of what everybody else was doing. So the only thing that I really didn't know as much about was the post process. I was there in the room making it, but I didn't know really as much about what happened when it left the building. And so really the post process is something that really in the past 8 years I've learned a lot more about.
Why 8 years? What happened 8 years ago? Which film did it, or was there a film in particular that did it to you?
No, I kind of made that number up. But,
okay, j'ai juste inventé le chiffre. I mean, actually, was there a film that you shot that actually triggered a thing that you say, oh, well, I mean, the audience might not see it, but there's something that is happening as an actor that you could see. Something was changing.
How do you mean?
I mean, did you feel, for instance, the audience, we don't really see, I mean, now we will understand better, but it's true that we're not into it and we don't necessarily see the shift. And I was wondering, you as an actor, as you were actively in films and some digital, when did you feel the shift that we as the audience could not feel yet?
I would say actually, and maybe it didn't impact ultimately to the audience, but I think for me the first kind of change was when you had video playback. The experience of, in the beginning when I was starting out, it's like you shot it, but there was really the cinematographer had any idea, and the operator, about what was the image, what was being captured. And then, I guess for me it was late 80s. All of a sudden they had a video tap coming out of the camera, and then other people could start watching it, and then they put it into a situation where they had video playback. And then it was like, you'd do the scene, and then it would be like, okay, well, what did we just shoot? Oh, yeah. And then you're like, oh, no, you don't have to talk to me, director. I just saw what I'm going to change. Thanks very much. Well, that's one way it could go. And some people then wouldn't look at video. Anyway, there's a whole story around that. But I would say, I mean, it doesn't connect to the audience. I'm sorry, this is so, video play that.
In fact, I mean, when you started this project, which took you around the world, and you met incredible directors, I mean, was it very difficult, I mean, for you to choose, to pick, and to convince the directors you wanted to talk to?
Yeah, when we were, Chris Keneally, the director, and then Justin Slaza, the producer, and myself, when we were starting to kind of think about what we were going to do, we really did some research about, you know, the history of video and digital, and so we really wanted to, as certain events cinematically were happening, and certain technologies, you know, like digital editing or color correction, you know, and the camera. So we would highlight people like Danny Boyle and Anthony Dogmantle and you know, the Dogma 95 and Gary for Indigent. So we started to kind of say, okay, well, these are the people that in what we've discovered we should try and meet. And then we started on that process of which basically became for us a letter that said, we love you, we love who you are, wherever, whenever, however you can talk to us, we'll be there.
Actually, were there some directors that, which conversations was very impressive to you, or that intimidated you most? I don't know, I was just wondering.
There were many that we felt like that, but I would say collectively, once we reached out to George Lucas, and he eventually agreed to a certain time and place, and we were like, we'll be there. And then we basically, you know, we started to call George Lucas Zeus. So it's like, okay, so what are we going to ask Zeus? Because, you know, he, as you saw, he had such fundamental and maverick participation and creator of so much of the digital process. We're Zeus's children, basically.
I know that you were mentioning Chris Keneally, obviously your director. He came from digital, where you came rather from film. Did it create like a sort of constant dialogue? What's the good part of digital? What's the bad part? I mean, was it a bit like that? I mean,
and Chris was very like, he's very practical, but he also was really, you know, pro-digital, but just really excited about, you know, the possibilities and capabilities. And not that he didn't love film as well, but it was definitely me saying, yeah, but it's not as. And he's like, yeah, whatever, man. It will be. And so, but then as we went through the experience, he basically still felt the same way, if not more so. And I had a better perspective of I'll just call it the situation.
All right.
The evolution.
Voilà. By the way, how good or how bad is the situation? Well, you give me my questions, what can I tell you?
No, I like the question. It really is, depends on who you talk to. You know, but fundamentally, something that's really great is the means of production, is that, you know, the tools to be able to capture images, to tell stories, and the possibility and potentiality to watch stories, you know, because of the, let's call it digital, is fantastic. You know, it's absolutely, it's for storytellers and audiences, that's just amazing.
I'm sorry because I don't speak English very well.
I'm sorry, I didn't speak French.
Donc, par rapport en fait, à un monde occidental plutôt matérialiste, et vu vu qu'aujourd'hui les mondes occidentaux est en train de détendre beaucoup sur cette partie spirituelle, comment vous voyez-vous l'avenir et comment vous pensez aussi exprimer ça au cinéma est-ce que pour vous les symboles yin et yang est encore valable aujourd'hui? Est-ce qu'il y a encore un équilibre dans tout ça?
D'accord.
Sounds like a long question. Which is okay.
Oui, bien
In English,
sûr.
today is my birthday, but I have
Happy
a
birthday.
little present for you if you accept it. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Okay, well, happy birthday anyway. Well, the third question about your evolution as an artist, you seem more and more to be guided, attracted to Eastern philosophies. I mean, the search of the God within us, within humanity, etc. How, yeah, etc. Because they all understood the French, and I'm sparing you. So, how would you express?
French person talking about God. I mean, but that's another thing.
How would you express in the future this Eastern spirituality? Do you still feel that the yin and the yang are, I mean, something that we can count on, this sort of balance?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Hopefully. Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, I wouldn't know if I would just describe myself as being living my personal life in terms of a Eastern philosophy or religion, but certainly. I don't know how to answer this.
Well,
Yes.
Is for you Point Break is a great moment in your career and your. What do you think about the participation with Patrick Swayze?
Merci. Yeah, Point Break was for me a big break. In that sense of I had never done an action film before, so and I really enjoyed physical acting and so that opportunity was great, and to have that chance with a filmmaker like Catherine Bigelow who was really pushing her energy and pushing the camera, putting the camera in places that I think films hadn't often gone. Just a celebration of skydiving and surfing and bank robbery. Her energy was, I thought, really exceptional, and her vision fantastic. And Patrick Swayze was a beautiful person, wonderful artist, just really fantastic.
Wow, okay. Well, Serge is a French director, and he's learning a script, and he said he wants to know if you read Mona Lisa's Lucrèce, c'est ça? Because he was told you did, and he wants to know if that's the truth.
No.
Et la deuxième partie de la question, would you like to play Leonardo da Vinci?
The script is good.
It really depends on the script.
So my question is related to Side by Side.
Yes!
I was quite interested by the description of the perceptual experience by some of the film nostalgics. I know you. So, on one side, we have the film with a very rich sensory experience where visual, haptics, olfactory, auditory senses are involved. On the other side, you have digital, where you have only, except for vision, all those senses are drastically suppressed or reduced. So I can see the benefits of digital, but can we say that there is a trade-off that we are losing a rich multisensory experience? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so the people that we're talking about who had the experience of film editing, you know, talked about how the time it took to do it brought a certain amount of focus, or not to say that that focus, again, in the documentary is not there for a digital experience, just that it's different. And, you know, I guess, you know, we're losing the idea of film development, you know, developing the physical film. So, yeah, in terms of like the experience for the viewer, yeah, I mean, I think certainly the image, you know, that right for today, I mean, digital cameras are getting much better. The, you know, the Red Dragon that's coming out is going to be, you know, 14 stops of latitude, and the color space. The movies that we're watching right now are pretty much still 2K and 2K projectors, which when compared to a perfect, beautiful, pristine film image is not even comparable. So we're being delivered kind of not as good quality per se right now, but you know, we have laser projectors coming and the color space. So it's going to get better, and it's, you know, going to match it. So it's a subjective and objective experience, oddly tied together. But I do know that you know, the images that we're watching aren't as good. It doesn't have the depth, but it's still pretty great. But it's not. But it's gonna get better. It'll get better. And in terms of yeah, again, it's just a different workflow, a different way, you know, in terms of, again, you know, editing, projection, and loading in cameras and stuff. But I don't know how much, other than the image quality, impacts the experience of watching a movie. Difference.
Alors voilà. Yes.
Hi. Hi everybody. It's an honor to have you here in Paris. Thank you.
Yes.
And in the movie, I was curious to know what will be the opinion of the director and all the persons about 4D and also about transmedia, because at the end of the documentary, we talked about who is making the movie. And I would like to know also your opinion about that. And maybe it can be a next subject of the commentary. Maybe.
So when you say transmedia, what do you mean?
I mean when we are part of the script. You know, when we are part of the script, it could be at the before making the movie, or I think about Batman. They did that for where everybody contribute to. Everybody was a part of the.
Well, they make certain choices, like you choose what kind of villain, or choose what kind
Yes,
of
that's
city,
right.
or choose some kind of participation.
Yes, like a participation.
Okay, you know, I don't know everything about everything when it concerns everything about digital. I know a bit, but in terms of 4K, as you saw in the film, it's having more sensors and ultimately pixels, maybe. Which would help with resolution. And could help with detail, aspects of depth, depending on the, because that depends in terms of the device. But you have that broadly, that's a lot of what 4K is. In terms of the future, wow. I don't know. I mean, it seems like, you know, people want simulated experiences, they want to be completely immersive. The Wachowskis talked about virtual, you know, shared experiences, you know, yeah.
Ça sera en français parce qu'en anglais, je suis là.
I was just thinking, I recognized you. I was like, oh, okay, you're going to ask a question in French. And so, okay, I'll listen to that because I don't know, but I was just thinking about virtual participation. And I have another answer, another thing to add there. Please, sir, excusez-moi, commencez.
Well, obviously, digital is a major tool in film preservation. I mean, for instance, he was quoting Jaws in 2001, done in 4K, better sound, better color grading, yes. But he was wondering, how far can we go into modifying films that exist, you know, that already exist and transform them? As George Lucas, for instance, every 10 years, he has a new Star Wars coming out with improvements. So as long as the director is alive, that may be fine. But do you think there could be, or there should be, limits to using digital to change or preserve certain films?
I don't know, I mean, I know that I've spoken to a couple of people about how digital is being used to restore, you know, damaged negatives, you know, from the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, where they kind of take parts of the negative that they have and they can digitally fill it in, basically. Yeah, I mean, I think as long as, you know, the original intended work is preserved, and obviously if someone's going to manipulate that there are, you know, are permissions and licenses, and, you know, I don't really want to say like no, you know, but I would just say no. If I would say no, that if you were going to destroy the original piece, you know, but I think any kind of story that goes on after that with permission could be good, bad, you know, wacky, terrible, great, you know, so I really don't want to kind of cut that off, but it's protect the original.
What's your take on the way that the young generation in particular is receiving films, I mean, on iPads, tablets, and all that? What do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like what Greta Gerwig said. You know, you can have an opinion about it, but who knows? I mean, I think, again, you know, it depends on what you're watching and how you're watching it and how you want to watch it. You know, I think this is a pretty cool thing to watch something projected that's so big and awesome sound. But, you know, if there's another way that you want to watch it, because of however you want to watch it, because you're watching it, then I guess you're watching it. Which is great, with whatever you want to watch.
All right.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for showing the magic of our jobs. That was really brilliant, and it was great to get the chance to listen to all these DPs and technicians. Thank you, really.
Yeah, thank you.
So you've been acting, you've been producing, you've been directing, you've been interviewing people. What's next? Do you plan on producing other documentary films, and what's your interest?
Yeah, I don't have I don't have any projects in terms of a documentary right now. Storytelling in that way. I hope to direct again. Looking for a story again to tell. And the past 6-7 months, I've been working on some films, just as an actor. Yeah.
Have you started Knock Knock, or is it just been
Finished
announced?
Knock Knock.
You just finished, wait.
Well, Sophie, I came from Brazil just for the festival. I want to thank Sophie and the whole team for putting together an amazing event. Great question. I assume you have a lot of footage from the film. Do you have any idea or plans on making available? Making available the footage you have from the, yeah. And second, I've been talking to Justin to take Side to Brazil to our festival. I hope you come as well.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we've edited, the plan is to hopefully release maybe 5 DVDs that have the longer interviews, so there would be 3 subjects per DVD that have longer interviews, you know, with Scorsese and all of the other. We won't do, in the film I think there's around 70 people, subjects, so we're not going to do all 70 of the interviews, but we're going to start with the 5 DVDs, probably around 15 people. And we have over 120 interviews. So what we'd like to do, we're still trying to figure out a way to do this, but was basically have it all translated, you know, just have it put down into text, and then have that file, and then send that file to certain museums and film institutes.